Matcha seems to be everywhere these days. It's meant to be good for your health, good for your skin, and a lot of people are drinking it instead of coffee now. But did you know that here in Japan, matcha used to be just one small part of something much bigger? People even built small tea rooms just to drink a single bowl of matcha, and the samurai had to leave their swords outside before going in. In that world, it didn't matter if you were a lord or ordinary person. So why did drinking a single bowl of matcha require all of that? Because tea in Japan was never just about what was in the bowl. The architecture, the objects, the sounds, and even the way people moved were all part of one experience. So today, I want to look at why such a huge world was built around a single bowl of matcha. By the end of this video, matcha might look a little different to you. Hi, I'm Satomi Takayama. I'm a Japanese artist based between Japan and London. On this channel, I look at the things that we tend to overlook in our busy lives, mainly through Japanese culture and aesthetics. So for this video, I want to draw on one of my favorite books, The Book of Tea by Okakura, written in the early 20th century. In Japan, matcha was enjoyed as part of something called Chanoyu. In Japanese, Chanoyu or chado usually gets translated into English as tea ceremony, but I think that translation is a bit misleading. When you hear tea ceremony, you probably imagine a fairly formal gathering built around drinking tea, but Chanoyu was so much more than that. Even European afternoon tea was aiming at something quite different from what Chanoyu was. Chanoyu wasn't just about drinking tea. It brought together the space, the objects, the way people carried themselves, even their state of mind, as one whole world. Okakura himself went beyond the idea of a ceremony. He called it teaism, a whole philosophy, a way of living. Tea started out in China as a medicine, before it grew into an everyday drink, and eventually a culture of its own. It made its way to Japan, and over the centuries, it was shaped into something distinctly Japanese, Chanoyu. Okakura believed that underneath this aesthetic sat the idea of Taoism and Zen. Chanoyu is often called a total work of art, and that's not just because beautiful bowls and tools were used. It's because so many other elements had to come together for Chanoyu to be complete. The experience actually starts before you even step into the tea room. Guests first walk along a little garden path called the roji on their way to the room. The roji isn't just a path to get you there. Walking quietly over the stepping stones, past the moss and the trees, is a way of gradually leaving the outside world behind and preparing your senses for what's about to happen. Then, once you are inside, there's a scroll and flowers in the alcove, and the bowl, the kettle, and every other object used that day has been chosen with real intention. It's not about filling the room with beautiful things. Everything was arranged to work together, depending on the season, the weather, the guests, and whatever the central object of the day happened to be. Okakura gives an example. Say there are flowers on display, you don't also hang a painting of the same flower. Or if a round kettle is being used, you'd avoid repeating the same shape in the other utensils. Everything is there to bring out something in everything else. And it isn't only about what you can see either. The sound of water coming to the boil, the light coming into the room, even the silence. All of it is part of what makes the moment. Okakura described this as an improvised drama, and I think that's such a precise way to put it. No single element is the artwork on its own. The artwork is the entire span of time. But what Chanoyu turned into art wasn't limited to what you could see or hear. The tea master who created the whole space was considered a part of the art too. And by tea master, I don't mean someone who simply teaches how to prepare tea. These are people with deep knowledge and skill in Chanoyu, who built an entire world for a single gathering. There was even a time when Chanoyu was so closely tied to politics that some tea masters became trusted advisors to the most powerful warlords, standing close to the center of power. Rikyu, the most famous of them, was far more than a tea expert. So a tea master back then held a role far bigger than what we would picture as a tea teacher today. They needed knowledge that went well beyond how to prepare tea. Architecture, gardens, ceramics, flower arranging, calligraphy, painting, incense, reading the season, and then how to host a guest. The list goes on. Some tea masters designed tea rooms themselves, wrote the calligraphy that would hang in the alcove, or decided exactly which craftsman should make which object. Choosing the right scroll, flowers, and a bowl for the season and for the guests was a real test of a tea master's knowledge and taste. They work alongside craftspeople across every one of these fields, pulling it all together into one experience. Which, when you think about it, makes them sound a lot like we would now call a creative director. But what the tea master was trying to shape wasn't only the spaces or objects. Okakura writes in the Book of Tea that tea masters try to turn themselves into art. How you walk, how you sit, how you handle an object, how you meet another person. Every one of those small everyday things was thought to carry a person's aesthetic sense. So in Chanoyu, it wasn't just the scroll, the garden, or the bowl that counted as art. The tea master himself had to embody it. There's a story about Rikyū in the Book of Tea that I really want to share. One day, Rikyū was watching his son sweep the roji. His son washed the stepping stones, watered the trees, and cleared away every last branch and left from the ground. The garden looked immaculate, however you look at it. And still, Rikyū told him that's not how you sweep the roji. He went down into the roji himself, shook a tree, and scattered the freshly cleaned ground with golden red autumn leaves. What Rikyū wanted wasn't just cleanliness, he wanted to look beautiful and natural at the same time. What do you think of that kind of aesthetic sense? When I read this, it genuinely gives me chills. Being spotless isn't the same as being beautiful. I'm just in awe of that icky sensibility in Rikyū, and just how cool his aesthetic sense was as a tea master. I actually used to practice shadow myself. When you step into a tea room, the air feels so still, almost tense in a way. You find yourself sitting up straighter without meaning to, and your senses feel sharper than usual. Looking at the scroll or the bowl, and a tea scoop being used that day, you realize there are so many layered worlds sitting inside that one room. I love that space. Reading the Book of Tea again reminded me that I want to be someone a bit like a tea master. Not literally becoming one, but using the space, the objects, the flowers, the sand, even the way I carry myself to properly host the person in front of me. Getting involved from the very start if I need to, even down to making the objects or the architecture itself. Wouldn't that just be brilliant? Obviously, getting anywhere close to that takes a long time, but I think even if it takes decades, I want to keep learning throughout my life and slowly sharpen that skill and sense. So going back to where we started, why was such a huge world built around a single bowl of matcha? I think it's because they weren't just trying to drink matcha. They were trying to make the time spent around that one bowl as good as it could be. Right now, matcha is popular all over the world, but knowing there's a whole world sitting behind that one cup, I think it changes how you taste it, even just a little. Instead of rushing through it, you might just pause quietly and give that one cup a bit of your attention. Okakura writes in the Book of Tea that the tea room was a space where space was valued above almost everything else. Reading that, what I took from it was, even if tea couldn't stop the battles samurai were once forced to fight, or solve the bigger problems that world faces today, perhaps it could still create a smaller piece around a single cup. I really love that idea. I hope today's video gives you a little something to think about next time you are drinking matcha. There's still so much I want to learn, experience, and share with you, and I'll keep doing that on this channel as I walk towards my dream of one day creating a space that people can actually walk into and experience. Every one of you who subscribes and supports this channel brings that dream closer than you would think, and if that's already you, thank you so much. And on Quiet Japan, I write about things that didn't make it into the video, so do check the link in the description. See you in the next one. So thank you for watching today's video. So in today's behind the episode, I wanted to show you a painting I recently finished. A year ago, I visited Ghana and I painted this inspired by that time. When I met a local Ghanaian girl and asked what she wanted to do in the future, she simply said she just wanted peace. There's so much happening in the world that makes me think about what peace really means. So I wrote the piece on the painting with a colon after it left open like the meaning is still unfinished. I'm still hoping to make some videos about my time in Ghana. Yeah, so I hope you are all well, wherever you are. I'll see you in the next one.